Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're starting with this really interesting image. Picture a sweet potato. Not one planted in soil, but just, well, sprouting on its own. In a vase of water, you can almost see those, delicate roots reaching down and the green shoots bending towards the light. It's this quiet, insistent kind of growth, isn't it? And our source material points out something practical, those leaves. They're edible, nutritious, common knowledge in parts of Asia, apparently. This image, the sweet potato, is really a powerful metaphor for our deep dive today. Our mission is to explore resilience, emergent care, in conditions the source describes as hostile, challenging. We're diving only into the provided source material here, looking at how communities might cultivate care, solidarity, when, well, the usual systems seem to falter.
Yeah, and the source really sets that stage quickly. It talks about a recent legislative thing, ironically called the Big Beautiful Budget Bill. But the text immediately says this beauty actually led to, and I quote, brutal budget cuts hitting, key sectors.
Okay, brutal cuts. That sounds stark. So the source breaks that down. What specifically got cut, according to the text? And did it mention where money did go?
It does. It details pretty significant reductions, things like public health care, education, even food supports. And then there's the contrast. While those were cut, the source says budgets for entities like ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and DHS, Homeland Security, reportedly went up.
Right, so the source isn't just describing cuts. It sounds like it's framing it as a deliberate shift, a hollowing out, you said,
Yeah.
leading to this thing it calls medical theater. What does that mean exactly, according to the source?
Exactly, a hollowing out. And this medical theater, well, the idea presented is that it's like a performance of care. You might have coverage, technically, but real support. It's described as conditional, delayed, maybe completely out of reach for many, particularly the source names are rural people, poor, disabled, trans, undocumented individuals, also Black and brown communities, migrants.
Okay. And does it get into the specifics of existing programs?
Yeah.
The safety nets?
Oh, yes. It talks about the gutting, that's the word used, of things like Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, which is food aid, also Title I for education, and IDA support for disabled students. Big programs. It even makes this really strong claim that funds already set aside by Congress for public education were, quote, illegally impounded by the executive branch.
Wow.
And this leads to a really provocative thought mentioned in the source, the idea that cared for people are harder to control.
That's quite a statement, suggesting a purpose behind the lack of care.
It's definitely a perspective offered in the text. It also touches on Obamacare, describing it sometimes as offering coverage without care for a lot of people. This leads to what the source calls ghost systems.
Ghost systems. That's evocative. What are those, according to the source? Why do they happen?
Well, the source uses ghost systems to describe healthcare services that look like they're there, but they're essentially hollow. It points to things like private equity buyouts, severe understaffing, so you have the insurance card, the coverage, but the actual doctors, nurses, resources, they might not really be accessible.
So like an illusion of care.
Pretty much, yeah. That seems to be the implication in the text.
Okay, so given this picture of faltering systems, these ghost systems, what's the core message the source puts forward? Where does help actually come from?
Right, and this is crucial. The source states very clearly survival has never come from these systems, not really. Instead, it asserts what's kept us going, what's kept us alive is each other.
Each other. So community, mutual support.
Exactly. And it frames this not as, a sad thing, not a tragedy, but as a turning point, a moment to recognize and build on that reality.
So it shifts from critique to solutions. Does it offer examples?
It really does. It gets very practical, very grassroots. It gives these vivid examples of mutual aid, community care that's already happening, simple things like tending to herbs on the windowsill, or passing soups, tinctures, homegrown greens between neighbors.
And everyday acts.
Yeah. Neighbor chats, medicine swaps, going for walks together, garden shares. And the key point the source makes is this is care that doesn't come with a billing code or a copay or a penalty.
Care outside the system.
Born from connection, yeah. Not from, like, a transaction.
That makes sense. And the source connects this to older wisdom too, right? There was something about a grandmother.
Yes, a really lovely anecdote. It highlights this grandmother's focus on prevention. Basic stuff, but fundamental, like ensuring complete nutrition, clean water, daily movement, preserving food, things our ancestors just knew.
Things we maybe forgot.
Perhaps, but what was really interesting was this detail. She apparently used to write to people across the world in Esperanto, exchanging letters, small gifts, maybe tea or seeds.
Well, Esperanto.
Yeah. The source presents it as care shared across borders and language, even when feeling isolated. It's a reminder these acts are deep historical.
So building on that, does the source give advice for us now? Like, what can people do?
Absolutely. There's a whole section described as what we can do instead, and it's very down to earth. It starts small, self-care, but framed as resilience. Eating well, stretching, getting sun, walks, basic body maintenance.
It's foundations.
Right. Then it moves to growing food, but in super accessible ways. No big garden needed. Radishes in tubs, basil in old coffee tins.
Sweet potato in the jar.
Exactly. Potatoes in burlap sacks. Simple stuff. And crucially, sharing what you grow and actively relearning, as the source puts it, what our great-grandparents knew. That's self-sufficiency, but also community reliance.
It's not just individual, though. Does it talk about organizing, even informally?
Yes, definitely. It suggests forming what it calls health pods.
Health pods.
Yeah, not formal clinics, just small groups. Maybe a few people who commit to checking in on each other, sharing resources, reminding someone to take their meds, or just asking if they ate today.
Simple. Direct care.
Very direct. It also mentions things like community seed swaps, skill shares, mutual aid apothecaries, and teaching each other practical skills again, like identifying wild edible or medicinal plants, making a simple salve, cooking healthy food on a tight budget.
Things that used to be common knowledge.
Right. And then it throws down this challenge saying, we refuse the lie that care must be professionalized to be real.
That's powerful. It reframes expertise almost.
Yeah.
Saying lived experience and community knowledge is real care.
Precisely. And it connects us to history again in a really interesting way. It brings up the Soviets, noting they focused on prevention not because they were backwards, but because, quoting the source, they were embargoed, isolated, and under siege.
Okay, that's an unexpected comparison. What's the point it's making there?
Well, the source seems to use it not as an endorsement of the Soviet system itself, obviously, but to say that methods developed under extreme pressure, out of necessity. Those methods of self-reliance and community interdependence might be more urgent now for us.
So learning from historical necessity.
Yeah, that seems to be the angle, that these aren't just nice ideas, they're potentially vital survival strategies drawn from difficult historical circumstances.
Which brings us back, I suppose, to the sweet potato. The sweet potato doctrine, the source calls it.
Yes, it ties it all together beautifully.
So unpack that for us. The sweet potato doctrine.
Well, the source reminds us the sweet potato doesn't need perfect conditions.
Right. It just grows.
It doesn't need permission. It finds a way, just roots where it can, reaches for the light, and begins again. And the source suggests that this act of beginning again, feels almost holy in these kinds of challenging conditions.
Beginning again. Quietly, insistently.
Yeah. And it deepens this by pointing out that tending to life in hostile conditions is not new for many. It specifically highlights disabled and neurodivergent people, saying they often carry blueprints in our bodies for care that isn't billable, solutions that don't come from the top down.
Blueprints in bodies. Can you give examples from the source?
Sure. It mentions things like scripting conversations, maybe to navigate social anxiety, or hoarding medications, planning ahead in case insurance access disappears, or using things like rotational diets to manage debt issues when standard medical advice fails.
Things born out of lived experience.
Exactly. And the source argues powerfully that when these personal strategies, these ways of knowing, are shared, they become forms of resistance.
Resistance through care.
That's the idea. It concludes this thought by saying these are not lost arts, they're sleeping ones. And maybe now's the time to wake them.
Wow. Sleeping arts of care. Waiting to be reawakened.
It's quite a call to action, really. This whole journey through the source material, it really highlights the strength found in community care, in mutual aid, in remembering these, sleeping arts. It hammers home that point. Survival has never come from these systems, really, but from each other.
So for you listening, we want to leave you with a thought, a question, really, pulled straight from the source, something to carry with you. We've talked about growing anyway, like that sweet potato, rooting where you are, quiet, visible, alive. The question from the source is simple. So what are you growing? And it doesn't have to be huge. Maybe it really is just a pot of mint on the windowsill. Or, those scallions regrowing in a jar on the counter. Could be a shelf of dried herbs you collected, a stack of letters you mean to send, a recipe passed down, one that never saw a cookbook. And think about people. The source asks, who do you check in with? And just as vital, who checks in with you? What would it actually take right now to form a small health pod or a garden pod, just a small circle of mutual care? One that doesn't need the state's okay to be real. Because you don't, as the source says, need to know everything. You don't have to be perfect. Just start. Start with what you have, a sprout, boiling a kettle for noodles for someone, remembering a story, learning a neighbor's name. Because the source leaves us with this powerful idea. The care we offer each other now is the infrastructure of the future.
And we are growing.